They said my wedding to Preston Ainsworth was a fairy tale. An orphan girl from nowhere, swept off her feet by the handsome scion of an old Vermont family. The sprawling Ainsworth Manor in Harrow's Glen, with its dark timber and endless corridors, was supposed to be my castle, my sanctuary. Now, it's my prison. And my daughter, sleeping soundly in her crib, is my fellow inmate. The door to the nursery creaked open, spilling a sliver of hallway light across the polished floorboards. It was Beatrice, my mother-in-law. She glided into the room, a phantom in a silk nightgown, her face a mask of serene benevolence. In her hands, she held the breast pump. The cold, sterile plastic gleamed under the soft glow of the nightlight. "Time to make nectar for BB, dear," she whispered, her voice a cloying mix of honey and venom. Everyone was supposed to call her BB. It was one of the first rules I learned. My stomach churned. "He's already fed, Beatrice," I said, my voice barely a whisper, trying to keep it steady. "He's sleeping." I had started referring to my daughter as he around them. A small, pathetic act of defiance. Beatrice's smile didn't falter, but her eyes, ancient and sharp, narrowed slightly. "The baby's needs are met, Juliana. Now it's time for the family's needs." She placed the pump on the changing table with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. I was nothing more than livestock to them, a prize-winning dairy cow. My husband, Preston, had explained it all on our wedding night, his voice laced with the casual cruelty of the truly entitled. "It's our family's greatest secret, Julie. The Centennial Protocol. It's how the Ainsworths stay so vibrant." It was a ritual. A cult. And I was its new, unwilling fountain of youth. "My mother hasn't had a fresh source in over a year," Preston had said, as if discussing the weather. "She's so excited to have you." Now, Beatrice's excitement was a physical presence in the room, a suffocating pressure on my chest. I refused to move. Her smile finally vanished. "Don't be difficult, dear. It's a great honor." Rhiannon, Garrett's wife, understood that. Rhiannon. The ghost who haunted these halls with her cynical sighs and haunted eyes. I understood now. "No," I said, the word feeling foreign and powerful on my tongue. Beatrice's face contorted into a mask of theatrical grief. "Oh, the poor baby. BB is starving. This cruel woman won't feed her." It was a performance, meant for an audience of one who was just arriving. Preston appeared in the doorway, his face a thundercloud of disapproval. "Juliana, what are you doing to my mother?" He didn't wait for an answer. He strode across the room, his larger frame blocking out the light. "This isn't a negotiation. It's our tradition. The family's future is in you, and you will not deny us." He gestured to his mother, who rushed forward, her eyes gleaming with a disturbing, primal hunger. I was pushed back onto the rocking chair, my arms pinned by my own husband. Beatrice loomed over me, her hands reaching for the buttons of my nightgown. The humiliation was a fire in my veins. "This is for the family," Preston murmured in my ear, his breath hot and sour. "And you are part of this family now. You will learn your place." They were monsters. And I had willingly walked into their den. As they took what they wanted, a cold, hard resolve began to crystallize in the pit of my stomach. They thought they had broken me. They were wrong. They had just shown me the rules of their game. And I would learn to play it better than they ever could. The next few weeks were a living nightmare. I was a prisoner in my own home, my body a resource to be plundered. Twice a day, like clockwork, BB would appear with her pump and her saccharine sweet demands. I tried to resist, but Preston's threads always hung in the air, a poison thicker than the cloying floral scent of his mother's perfume. The threads were always about my daughter. "A baby needs its mother," he'd say, stroking our daughter's cheek with one hand while his other gripped my arm. But a mother who doesn't contribute to the family, well, she might find herself unable to care for her child. I learned to disassociate, to let my mind drift away to a place where I was free, while my body endured the violation. I was playing the part of the docile, compliant wife, but behind my empty eyes, a plan was beginning to form. My first small victory came in the form of store-bought organic formula. One evening, while Preston was out, I managed to swap one of the bags of pumped milk in the freezer with a bag of the prepared formula. I watched through a crack in the door as BB drank it later, closing her eyes in ecstasy. Ah, such purity. She cooed to no one in particular. Juliana's life force is exceptionally strong. The bitter taste of triumph mixed with my fear. It was a small win, but it proved they were fallible. They were fools, but my deception was a temporary solution. I needed a way out. The opportunity came from the most unexpected of sources, Rhiannon. I found her one afternoon in the garden, chain-smoking and staring at the dead rose bushes. She had the look of a woman who had been hollowed out from the inside. "Enjoying the view?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice soft. A humorless laugh escaped her lips. "The Centennial Protocol happened to me. 5 years of it. Until I couldn't produce another drop. Now I'm just decorative." I saw my future in her eyes, and it terrified me. But I also saw an opening. A shared enemy. A few days later, I accidentally left a medical website open on the library computer, detailing how grapefruit juice could have fatal interactions with common blood pressure medications. I knew from Preston that his older brother, Garrett, had high blood pressure. I saw Rhiannon glance at the screen later that day. Her expression was unreadable. I had planted a seed. I could only wait to see if it would bear poisonous fruit. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Preston stormed into my room, his face flushed with rage. He was holding a large, steaming bowl. "Your output is decreasing," he hissed. "Mother is displeased. You need to nourish yourself." The bowl contained the so-called life force broth, a greasy, foul-smelling concoction of bone and gristle. I recoiled from the smell. "I can't drink that." "You will," he said, his voice dangerously low. He grabbed me, forcing the bowl towards my lips. I struggled, and the hot, oily liquid sloshed over my clothes, onto the pristine white carpet. The waste sent him into a blind fury. He threw the bowl against the wall, where it shattered. "You ungrateful bitch," he roared. "You think you have a choice?" He disappeared for a moment and returned with a small, unlabeled vial and a glass of water. "If you won't do this the easy way, we'll do it the hard way." He dissolved the contents of the vial into the water. I saw the faint lettering on the discarded packaging he dropped. It was a black market veterinary hormone. A drug for livestock. Terror, cold and absolute, seized me. He enlisted his mother and brother, Garrett, to hold me down. They pinned me to the bed, their faces grim and determined. BB stroked my hair. "Hush now, dear. This is for your own good. It's for the family." Preston pried my jaw open. The bitter, chemical-laced water flooded my throat. I gagged, choked, my body convulsing. I was no longer a person. I was an animal being force-fed in a factory farm. As the last drop went down, and they released me, leaving me gasping and weeping on the soiled bed, the last vestiges of the old Juliana died. The woman who believed in reason, in love, in happily ever after, was gone. In her place was something cold, sharp, and utterly ruthless. They had wanted to turn me into a mindless animal. Instead, they had created a monster. Their monster. And I would devour them all. 2 days later, the household was in chaos. Garrett, the boorish, arrogant heir, was dead. A massive heart attack, the paramedics said. Rhiannon played the part of the grieving widow to perfection, her sobs echoing through the cavernous halls. But when our eyes met over her husband's body bag, I saw a flicker of something else in their depths. A terrifying, triumphant glint. The seed I had planted had not only sprouted, it had consumed a man. The family was so consumed with the sudden death that, for a few precious days, I was left alone. No BB. No pump. No broth. The veterinary drug had made me violently ill, but I hid the worst of it. The constant nausea and cramping were a small price to pay for this reprieve. I used the time to plan. I knew Rhiannon was my unwilling accomplice, a weapon I could aim. But she was unstable. I needed more leverage. I went to the hospital for a checkup, complaining of postpartum complications. From the sterile safety of the examination room, I called Preston. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice carefully modulated to sound weak and scared. "Something is wrong." He arrived with Rhiannon in tow, both of them looking wary. I didn't give them a chance to speak. "The doctor says, the drug you gave me." I started to sob, forcing tears to well in my eyes. "It's in my system. It's in the milk." He said it's toxic. Preston's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. "Garrett," I whispered, looking from him to Rhiannon. "He had some of my milk in his coffee yesterday morning, didn't he, Rhiannon?" BB insisted. It was a lie. A complete fabrication. But it was a beautiful one. Rhiannon's eyes widened in panic. She understood instantly. I was linking his death to me, to the milk, to all of them. "And BB, she's been drinking it every day," I continued, my voice trembling. "Oh God, Preston, we're all poisoned. We're all going to die." The effect was instantaneous and glorious. Preston clutched his stomach, a guttural groan escaping his lips. He started gagging, stumbling towards the small trash can in the corner, trying to force himself to vomit. Rhiannon, not to be outdone, let out a piercing shriek and began to do the same. The commotion brought a nurse running in. She stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the sight of two well-dressed adults violently retching into a bin while I sat on the bed, the picture of a concerned, terrified victim. It was a masterpiece of chaos. My first real taste of power. They were discharged with a diagnosis of acute anxiety and a recommendation for psychiatric counseling. The story of the wealthy Ainsworths losing their minds in the county hospital spread like wildfire through the town's gossip mill. For the first time since my wedding day, I felt the scales tipping. I returned home from the hospital to an eerie silence. BB had locked herself in her room, refusing to see anyone. The fear I had planted had taken root. Preston looked at me with a new expression, a mixture of fear and confusion. The poison lie had neutralized them, for now. I thought I had won myself some breathing room. I was wrong. My enemy was not just the family's bizarre tradition. It was the simmering cauldron of resentment that was my sister-in-law. Late one night, Preston burst into my room, his face contorted with a righteous fury I hadn't seen before. He threw his phone onto the bed. On the screen was a photograph. It was of me, sleeping in my bed. Beside me, there was a naked man. A stranger. The photo was clearly staged, my body limp with sleep, the man artfully arranged to look like we were caught in a post-coital slumber. "You filthy, cheating whore!" Preston screamed, his voice cracking. "While my brother is in his grave, you bring men into my house? Into my bed?" The man in the photo was a plant. And I knew exactly who the gardener was. Rhiannon. It was a brilliant, vicious move. She had used my own tactics against me, creating a new crisis to shift the blame and re-establish her position as the grieving victim. That's not real, Preston, I said, my voice cold and even. Not real? He laughed, a high, unhinged sound. I'm divorcing you. And you will never see your daughter again. You will leave this house with nothing. The threat that had once paralyzed me now felt like a promise. Good, I said. Get the papers. I'll sign them. My calm defiance stunned him into silence. He had expected tears, denials, begging. He had no idea what to do with this new version of me. The divorce proceedings were a war of attrition. Preston, fueled by Rhiannon's lies, tried to paint me as an unfit, adulterous mother, but they had underestimated me. I had evidence. The vial from the veterinary hormone. A secret recording of BB demanding her nectar. A detailed journal of every threat, every forced feeding, every moment of abuse. I didn't want their money. I just wanted out. And I wanted my daughter. The stalemate broke in the most unexpected way. BB, deprived of her cure and terrified of the poison, had a complete breakdown. But it wasn't a retreat into madness. It was an evolution. She emerged from her room one day, her eyes burning with a new, terrifying clarity. She had been consulting with her Sedona channeler. The milk was just an appetizer, she announced at a tense family dinner. The true essence, the core of life's regenerative power, lies in the body's foundation. She looked at me, then at my daughter, who was cooing in her high chair. The fingernails, BB whispered, her voice reverent. A paste made from the nails of the mother and child, mixed with ginseng, applied nightly, it can reverse aging by a decade. Preston looked at his mother as if she were a prophetess. Rhiannon just stared, her face a mask of disbelief. Even for her, this was a new level of insanity. That night, they came for me. This time, with pliers. I fought. I screamed. I clawed. But Preston was strong, his mind completely enslaved by his mother's delusion. He held me down on the floor while BB approached, her face alight with an ecstatic glow, the pliers glinting in the lamplight. Just a little pinch, dear, she cooed. To make us all beautiful forever. The cold metal touched my finger. And in that moment of pure, undiluted terror, I found my voice. No. I screamed, a raw, primal sound that came from the depths of my soul. You want the true secret? The real one? The channeler told me too. I was lying, weaving a fantasy out of thin air. BB paused, her head cocked. What secret? The ultimate source of male vitality, I gasped, the words tumbling out. It's not in women at all. It's in the patriarch. It's in him. I screamed, nodding my head towards a stunned Preston. A man's essence, taken at the source, that's not just youth. That's immortality. The room went completely silent. BB stared at her son, a strange, calculating light dawning in her eyes. Preston looked back and forth between us, a dawning horror on his face. She's lying, mother. She's trying to trick you. But the seed of my lie was more potent than his truth. It was crazier. More promising. It fit perfectly into their world of insane logic. He's right, I said, pressing my advantage. I'm lying. Don't listen to me. Just take my fingernails. It's the safer, weaker option. That was the masterstroke. By framing my lie as the forbidden, more powerful truth, I made it irresistible. BB dropped the pliers. She looked at her son with the same hungry, possessive gaze she had once reserved for me. My boy, she whispered. My precious, powerful boy. I had handed her a new god to worship. And a new sacrifice to make. I fled the house that night with my daughter, not even bothering to pack. I left them to their new religion. 2 days later, the police were called to the Ainsworth Manor. They found Preston, alive but irrevocably broken, and BB, catatonic and covered in his blood, clutching a Westhoff boning knife. Rhiannon was the one who made the call. She had watched it all happen, and when she saw her path to inheriting the Ainsworth fortune clear, she became the star witness. BB was committed to a secure psychiatric hospital. Rhiannon, however, had miscalculated. During the investigation into Garrett's death, toxicology reports revealed the fatal combination of his medication and massive amounts of grapefruit concentrate. Her credit card records showed the purchase. My anonymous tip to the police sealed her fate. She traded her cage at the manor for a concrete cell. I got the divorce. I got full custody. I got my life back. Preston, after his release from the hospital, tried to find me. He was a ghost, a shell of a man, consumed with hatred for me and what he had lost. He found me once, outside my new office. He looked ragged, unkempt, his eyes filled with a terrifying emptiness. He lunged at my boss, screaming about how I had ruined him. The assault earned him a 2-year prison sentence. It was the final, pathetic chapter in his sad life. Today is my daughter's 5th birthday. We are at the park. She is laughing, her face sticky with cake, chasing a bright red balloon under a perfect blue sky. My new partner, a kind, gentle man who looks at me as if I am the sunrise, is pushing her on the swing. My life is quiet now. It is peaceful. It is mine. Across the street, a homeless man shuffles by, his face hidden by a mass of matted hair. He stops for a moment, watching us. Even from this distance, I recognize the hollowed-out rage in his posture. It's Preston. Out of prison. Out of time. A ghost at the feast. He turns and shuffles away, disappearing into the city's indifferent crowds. I feel nothing. No fear. No pity. He is a relic from another life. A story I no longer tell. I hold my daughter's hand, her small fingers warm in mine. The sun is warm on my face. The future is bright. And I am free.